Kia ora tātou. Bishop's address. I'm trying to think I might stand on the step here actually. Hey, first of all, thank you, Jean. I thought the way that we opened, and particularly the opening video, was really nice how everybody was welcome. I think that captures our theme of generous hospitality that we've practiced so well this year as a diocese. It really nailed it for us. And also, I loved all the dancing. It reminds me of a saying, and I can't remember who the saying is from, but it goes roughly like this. It's not my revolution if you can't dance. And I like that, which speaks of actually, if there's not joy to be found, it's not actually authentic change and revolution. And I think that's really good for us to hold on to. I think that first video showed it well. Earlier on, a few months ago, I was up in the morning for my morning private prayer, and I was feeling a little bit sort of discouraged, and I was praying, and I just said to God, God, it'd be good to hear something fresh from you. I mean, that's not something I don't normally hear. He loves me and all that. I mean, I get that stuff, and I hope we all get that stuff. But I was just praying, God, it'd be really good if, to have something a bit fresh. And then straight away, this picture came into my brain. And it doesn't normally happen like that, but it just comes straight in. And I want to share that picture with you because it's the theme of our time together over Synod. Straight away I got this picture of on the ocean. There was this run-down galleon. Maybe I'd watched too much of the Pirates of the Caribbean with Jack Sparrow, maybe. But this run-down galleon. And when I looked closely at this run-down galleon on the sea, what I saw was there was a lot of people working very hard all around this huge ship to kind of rebuild it in places. And actually, as I looked close, I realised, although the sails looked like they were in tatters, actually some of the sails had been re-sewn up. And actually some of the sails were now catching the wind. And actually the galleon was starting to move through the water. Now, sure, there were still some sails that needed to be sewn up, but actually some of them were. And we're actually moving. And we were catching the wind. And, sure, there were other boats out there and, they were catching the wind too. That was great. But we looked magnificent. Our bare bones were amazing. And I really felt like that was a picture from God for our time in history. And it's pretty obvious what it speaks to in our life together. It speaks to this fact, I think, that actually over the last few years, we are actually really working hard. And right around in all sorts of different ways, people are beaving around in the parishes and the diocese, and they're working to align again this beautiful galleon in order for its purpose, which is to be this wonderful seagoing vessel to catch the wind. And what it also speaks of is actually we are catching the wind. We are going forward. We have got some momentum. We are where we're meant to be, which is on the sea, on the waves, catching the wind. And the more we sew up the sails, the more we will go forward, the faster we will go, the more momentum we will have. And I thought that was, for me, a deeply encouraging picture of our reality. And what got me, though, was the beauty of our ship. Is that when we scrape away the barnacles and we repair a few sails and we polish a few things up, look, at least we're travelling in style. And that is beautiful. And that is really beautiful. And it's big. It's a big, big galleon that we're travelling in. But it's not for a museum. It's for the open sea. And it's to catch the wind. And we're doing that. So I leave that picture with you. And the reason why I think we are in that position, which I am so grateful for, is because I think we are and actively working hard to align and to do the work that we need to do. So we're going to, in a moment, you're going to get into these in groups of about 4 across different parishes. So I don't want you to be with people you from your parish. And I'm going to ask in your groups of 4 to at least each person to speak to one of these. Where have you experienced hope and signs of life in the following? family discipleship lost last least. The first family, for me, there was two things that I think this year has stood out for me. One was when we had our leaders gathering first half of the year in Tawa, and I think we had about 400 leaders lay and ordained from the diocese. And it was just this amazing gathering of people from right around the diocese being together, and it was a huge sense of family. The other one is one that you will not know about, but one diocese off its own back, it had nothing to do with 10% of building sales or anything like that. One diocese of its own back said, we want to gift the wider diocese for mission. We want to gift some money to the wider diocese for mission. They just gave a whole lot of money to the diocese for mission. I just thought that's amazing. There was no invitation, nothing like that. They just said, we've got this money and we want to see it used for mission in the wider diocese. Here's the money. And I was just kind of like, wow, that was an amazing sign of family. For me, discipleship, when I hear of EFM around the diocese, what it's doing, it just deeply, deeply encourages me. I went on Casio this year, and I can recommend it. It was an amazing experience, and those of us who went can testify to that. And for me, it's so exciting that, again, that across probably in 3DM, we probably now have 150 people or more in the diocese on the 3DM journey. So across all these vehicles of discipleship, it's very, very encouraging. And I think for me, the lost last least one, which obviously for many of us is probably top of our mind, for me is our diocesan work around the refugees, and particularly around providing the houses for resettlement. My understanding is, and Kay might be able to fix, but I think we're on our fourth group of houses now, that we are 4 or 5 groups, is it? Fifth group. We're on our fifth group of providing houses for refugees coming into Wellington. That is phenomenal. Parishes right across the whole diocese, schools, etc., and even other groups now are getting involved. And it's amazing that we've been able to provide that many household lots of goods, and it's ongoing. And for me, that is amazing sign of hope and life. So what I want you to do, and this is only the first part of my talk. There's a second part, okay? So you can't go forever now. What I want you to do is get into groups of 4 from different parishes, just where you are, and at least everybody's got to say one sign of hope on one of those categories from their context. Go for it. Okay, second conversation. As we go around the diocese, what I'm hearing a lot is people saying we're up for change, but now the change is actually impacting at the parish level, where different parishes are wrestling with what change looks like. And for some of them, it's about buildings. For some of them, it's like, how are we going to do these buildings? We've got too many buildings, or we've got buildings we can't maintain, or we've got earthquake issues. For some of them, it's just the fact that actually ageing congregations. For some of them, it's the fact is we can't afford going forward a vicar. Whatever it is, but most parishes I visit now, the change is actually at the parish level. So it's not about us gathering and talking about change at a diocese, but actually as we get down the parish level, that change is impacting each individual parish now. And that is challenging. That is challenging. So I want to give us some thoughts around that now as we locate ourselves on this galleon, on the sea, as we're going forward, as the wind is in our sails, but we still have work to do. Let us locate it. So first thing is this, is in this season of change, we must recognise the church has been here before. So it's not we're not the only ones who have had to change. It's thousands of years of history. God's people are constantly being called to change. It's not a new phenomena. So we can take some hope in what we've learnt before. And so I often reflect on the Exodus narrative of Moses leading the people out of Egypt, and they're wandering around the desert. And I often reflect on that narrative of change, that narrative of significant paradigm change. And so I'm just going to leave us with a few thoughts that I think we can find heart in that season of change for them. The first is this. I don't know how many of you have read this passage well, but in Numbers 32, an interesting thing happens as the Israelites are about to head into the promised land, about to cross over the River Jordan. 2.5 tribes, Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh, come to Joshua and say, hey, we don't want to actually have land in the promised land. We like this soil. We like this land. And this is what is said. Joshua says to them, "Should your fellow Israelites go to war while you sit here, why do you discourage the Israelites from crossing over into the land the Lord has given them?" And so these 2.5 tribes responded and they said, "We will come and fight for the new land, but can we reside back here afterwards?" And I thought that was that's a really deep, profound principle of change. That for some of us and some of our parishes and some of our congregations and some of our individuals, in the end, they may be happy where they are. And the principle is, that's fine, but you still have to help us all work for change. Got the principle? It's a really powerful principle, isn't it? It's we will bless you to reside in this place and to stay on the other side of the river. We will bless you to do that, but you must come and help us take the territory first. And I think that's a really good principle of change for us to hold on to. It's not saying that we will all go through this change journey and end up in the same places in our parishes, in our congregations, and as individuals. However, what it does say is we will all go through it together. But we may end up in different places, and that's good because that's the diversity of the church. So that's the first principle. Second principle, in Exodus 14 and then in Exodus 16, God's people are great. They say this: "In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, 'If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death.'" Okay, look, it's not just us who find it hard. Change is hard, and actually often we wish we were somewhere else. We wish we were back in the good old days, even though they probably weren't that good, we were slaves, but anyway. But actually that's normal. That's a normal reaction, that life is hard, change is hard, and we wish we were somewhere else. That's a real normal reaction. And that's always the reaction. And that's fine. Let's label that. You know, I would far rather on a bad day be somewhere else, and probably most of us would be. However, God has called us to this journey. I was reflecting, I just had the school's pilgrimage this week, which was phenomenal and amazing, but I started the pilgrimage with a dirty big sty on my eye, and it's still a little bit there, huge thing, and then everybody came up to me, of course, said, "Oh, you've been going too hard, Bishop, you've got a sty." So I got told about 50 times that I've been doing life too hard. Then I had this massive sty, went on the school pilgrimage, got back from the school pilgrimage Wednesday. Thursday morning I flew to Auckland, visited our amazing St John's students. That was great. I was flying back yesterday afternoon to Palmerston for this. Got to Auckland Airport. I'm already tired after the week, of course, and my sty, that big sty. I've been doing life too hard. And I got back to the airport and I booked into the Palmerston flight, and sure enough, it was cancelled. So then they go, "Well, you know, we're gonna fly you to Wellington, and then you're gonna get a bus up on Friday night. That's gonna be good." And then they say, "Pick your bag up off the carousel and rebook it in." So I go to the bag, pick up off the carousel, and I wait. And I wait. And then I see an identical bag come by that isn't my bag, but looks identically like my bag, and nobody seems to claim it. And then I suddenly realise they've lost my bag and somebody's stolen my bag out there. And so then, of course, but I've got no bag, and they won't let me on a plane without no bag because they'll think I'm a terrorist or something because I'm dropping, you've got to go with your bag always. But then I run to the plane, I get on the plane, go down to Wellington, at, I don't know, it was about quarter to 6, I think I arrived in Wellington or something, and then they put us on this bus. And then the bus couldn't even get out of Wellington Airport because the arm was... Somehow the bus driver couldn't work out how to get past the arm, and so we're actually sitting there not being able to escape the airport. And, I'm just going nuts, eh? And then we finally get out of there, and we're driving up the line, driving up the country, and we drive into Levin, and I'm thinking, okay, the bus, okay, I'm doing my Google map thing, okay, 45 minutes to the airport, brilliant, and the bus doesn't take that Levin turn off. And so my thing resets. I think, oh no, I've just lost 5 minutes. Oh, because they decided to go up State Highway 1 instead. And then they missed the next turn off. It's another 2 minutes on. Next turn off, they miss. And so we ended up going all the way through to Sanson before we made the turn off, which means we added another 13 minutes because I was calculating it the whole time. And I'm going crazy now. I just want to get to Palmerston. Like I've just been over it. So anyway, so I get to Palmerston, 13 minutes overtime because the bus driver decided to take the scenic route across the whole of the North Island. I got here and actually my bag turned up. Somebody had stolen my bag and then they'd ripped the label off my bag because it wasn't their bag, and then they handed it in, but there was no label on it, so nobody knew whose bag it was. It's like, oh my goodness. Anyway, I got my bag, and then there was another stuff up at the airport, which is fine. And so look, I got back to the hotel room and finally saw Jenny, who I haven't seen all week, and I was a little bit grumpy. Okay, and Jenny said to me, she said, basically something along the lines of, you are a gracious man, why are you responding like this? And it's fair enough. It's fair enough because, yeah, it's hard. But it is going to be hard. Our lives and change are going to be hard. But we can still be gracious in that. Just because it's hard and change, it doesn't mean that we don't have to be gracious. And as our parishes find the transition hard and as our parishes find change hard, we still need to be gracious. Hard doesn't give us an excuse for bad behaviour. It's just hard. And that's fine. It's hard. Final thing that we learn from the journey is this. After that passage, it said, finished with, there we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death. The next line is this. Then the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. In transition, in change, God always provides manna and quail for people. There was always manna and quail. God always provides for his people in change. Our job is to find it and recognise it and feed on it. It's interesting, as I was going through this complete debacle of last night and responding very, very badly, as I got on the bus, when we first got on the bus, and that bus driver who couldn't get out or didn't know the quick way at all, he said, oh, good to see you, Justin. And I actually knew him. He had done youth work with me and Jenny 25 years earlier. He'd been a youth leader. And he'd only been driving buses 2 weeks. And he... and this is what he said to me. When I first met him at the airport, he said, oh, when you see Jenny, can you tell Jenny... Because, this is 25 years ago, he said, Jenny prophesied over me 25 years ago that I would be a missionary. And could you tell her that it happened? I never believed it would happen, and that I went to Turkey for 3 years, and I never believed it would ever be me. So can you tell Jenny that? Now, if I had ears to hear, that was the manna and the quail for me, is that God's promises are fulfilled. God's promises will be fulfilled. And that the manna and the quail is always there for us in this season of change, if only we have the ears to hear it and the eyes to see it. So can I leave you with those 3 thoughts? First thought is that we go together, although we will end up in different parts, but we still go together. Second thing is, it's all right, it's hard. It's all right that it's hard, but we still have to be gracious. And the third point is this, is God always provides manna and quail in these seasons of transition and change. So here's 3 questions. Go into your 4 groups. Questions, what are you finding hard about this season of change? Where are you experiencing God's provision at this time? What might God be saying to you personally in this season? What might your response be? So get into groups of 4. We're going to give you a little bit of time but be disciplined about this. You approach this so that we don't sort of just rant, and make sure not one person dominates the whole conversation. Go for it.